Have you ever looked into your cat's eyes and felt something looking back? Not just a pet, not just a stare, but a knowing presence watching you, understanding you, as if it sees the parts of you you've never dared show anyone. There's a reason their gaze lingers longer than it should. Some ancient wisdom behind their silence. What if they've been watching your soul all along? That is not just a story about cats. It's about a soul bond, subtle, unseen, and perhaps older than this lifetime. Across centuries and across cultures, cats have been more than companions. They've been guardians, messengers, witnesses to the truth we often forget. Witnesses to the truth we often forget. In this video, we'll explore 3 soul-stirring questions. Why do cats seem to connect so deeply with our spirit? What exactly have they been observing? And since when? And what could happen if we continue to ignore the sacred signs they've been trying to show us? There are signs, subtle ones, that most people miss. A glance at the door before you arrive. A soft paw pressed against your chest the night before your breakdown. A gaze too still, too knowing. We dismiss these as quirks, but what if they were messages, whispers from beyond? What if your cat isn't just watching you, but trying to remind you of something you promised to remember? For nearly 2 years, I've been gathering stories, dreams, near-death moments, spiritual encounters between humans and their cats, stories from across the world that all point to the same hidden thread. There is a soul contract between you and the one who watches you in silence. And at the end of this video, I'll share with you a simple but powerful tool, a soul connection map I've created to help you understand your spiritual bond with your cat, or with the one you've lost but still feel near. It's free, and it's yours if your heart is open to it. Long before we ever called them pets, long before they curled up at our windowsill or sat on our chests as we cried, cats were something else entirely. Why is it that nearly every ancient civilization, from the Egyptians to the Hindus to the Mayans, revered the cat not as an animal, but as a spiritual being? The ancient Egyptians worshipped Bastet, the cat-headed goddess protector of the home, guardian of the afterlife, a divine feminine force who could both soothe and strike. In temples dedicated to her, cats roamed freely not as sacred decorations, but as living intermediaries between the physical and the divine. Across the ocean, in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica, jaguar gods ruled over death and dreams, and while not domestic cats, the archetype remained feline creatures were seen as gatekeepers between this life and the next. Even in Hinduism, the goddess Shashti, protector of children, is often accompanied by a cat, a subtle symbol of watchfulness over the soul before and after birth. So what is it about the cat that made entire civilizations kneel in recognition, not just affection? Because cats do not beg for your love, they observe. They move silently in and out of shadow, appearing, disappearing, as if walking between dimensions. To the ancients, cats were not bound by this world. They belonged to the in-between, where humans feared to go, cats roamed freely. They were not domesticated. They allowed themselves to live beside us, and in doing so, they became witnesses of everything we thought was hidden. Even now, when a cat stares into the corner of a room or suddenly bolts towards something unsaid, we brush it off. But in older traditions, these moments weren't odd. They were expected, because cats see what we cannot. They are the quiet sentinels of what lies beyond our senses, between breath and spirit, sound and silence. And this wasn't just symbolic mythology. It aligns, startlingly, with the insights of American mystic Edgar Cayce, who spoke often of animal souls, especially cats. He once said that certain animals, particularly those drawn to us in times of grief or transformation, may serve as guardians of the soul's passage between planes, not merely by instinct, but through a deep spiritual agreement made before incarnation. Which raises a stunning possibility. Your cat may not just be here to accompany your life, but to guide your transition between lives. A guardian, a silent keeper of memory, an ancient friend returned. So the next time your cat gazes at you without blinking, don't look away. It may be trying to remind you of a world you once knew and a bond you never truly left behind. So the next time your cat gazes at you without blinking, don't look away. It may be trying to remind you of a world you once knew and a bond you never truly left behind. But what if that gaze is not just a reminder of the unseen world, but a whisper from a life you've already lived together? What if your cat isn't just a companion of this lifetime, but a traveler you've known before? Have you ever met a cat and felt it wasn't meeting you for the first time, but simply coming home? It's a common story, more common than most realize. A woman in Hungary once shared how she dreamt of a black cat sitting at her windowsill every night for months. In the dream, it never moved. It only watched silently, patiently. Weeks later, she adopted a stray kitten. The moment she brought it home, it leapt onto her windowsill and sat exactly as in her dreams. She didn't name it. She remembered its name. These aren't isolated moments. In fact, modern dream researchers have documented hundreds of such cases, recurring dreams of animals appearing before they enter someone's waking life. And these animals, especially cats, often arrive during periods of deep emotional transition loss, illness, spiritual awakening, or childhood trauma surfacing again. Could it be coincidence, perhaps? But as Edgar Cayce once said, the soul never forgets a bond made in love. It simply waits until the world remembers. In the language of spirit, there is a concept known as soul companions, not all of them human. Some souls, by agreement, choose to return in gentler forms, not to speak, but to soothe, not to guide with words, but with presence, to keep watch, to protect. And yes, sometimes these souls return as cats. There's a reason you feel more at peace when they curl beside you. There's a reason they appear when you're broken. There's a reason they stare at the door long before anyone knocks. These aren't signs of high intelligence, though cats are indeed brilliant. They are signs of memory, not yours, theirs. If your cat came into your life during a time of change, a time of grief or healing, you may want to ask yourself, was this a chance encounter or a reunion? At the end of this video, I'll share with you a simple dream interpretation guide specifically for recurring animal dreams, especially those involving cats. It's based on dozens of spiritual case studies and includes the most common dream signs associated with soul reconnection. Because once you begin to remember the pattern, you may discover that this isn't the first time you've walked this path together, and it likely. So maybe this isn't your first lifetime together. Maybe this cat curled at your feet once held your hand in another form. But even more mysterious is the question we must now ask: what exactly is it watching now? You've seen it, haven't you? That silent moment when your cat walks into the room and stares. Not at the wall, not at the window, but at you, right into you, through you. And not with hunger, not for play, but with a stillness that feels sentient. You try to brush it off, Maybe it's just cat behavior. Maybe it's bored. Maybe it wants food. But some part of you knows better. Some part of you feels it like a quiet mirror reflecting back everything you've been trying to hide. Have you ever noticed that your cat shows up exactly when your mind begins to spiral? When you're crying, when you're grieving, when the weight of the world presses so hard on your chest that your breath catches in your throat? That's when it appears, laying beside you, watching, touching your face, pressing its body against your heart, without a word, because it doesn't need one. There's a documented case, one of many, of a woman whose cat began sleeping on the left side of her abdomen, over and over for weeks. She thought nothing of it until her doctor diagnosed her with a rare form of ovarian cancer, barely detectable at its early stage. But her cat knew. It sensed the change not in her body, but in her energy. Cats are more than sensitive to movement or smell. They are sensitive to frequency, to resonance, to the subtle shifts in your spiritual field, what Cayce called vibratory essence. And when that essence falters, they respond, not with panic, but with presence, because their role is not to alarm, but to attune. So how do you know if your cat is watching your soul? Here are 5 subtle signs you may have overlooked. They appear without sound during emotional breakdowns, sitting in silence beside you, eyes steady. They stare at you while you sleep, not to wake you, just to witness. They mirror your breathing, adjusting their rhythm to match your inner state. They touch specific parts of your body, often repeatedly, even if there's no visible injury. They fixate on places in your home, moments before you receive unexpected news, good or bad. Perhaps the question is no longer, is my cat watching me? But rather, am I finally ready to watch back? So perhaps your cat isn't just sensing your energy. Perhaps it remembers who you are beyond this life. But what if it also remembers itself? Have you ever brought a new cat into your home, only to watch it walk straight to a place it's never been? It jumps onto the same chair, sleeps in the same exact spot, scratches at a door that was never open to it, but always was to another cat before. At first, we think coincidence, instinct, a matter of comfort or scent. But what if it's something deeper? There's a story told by a father in Colorado. His daughter had lost her cat, Luna, in a car accident. She was 8 years old, devastated. For months, she barely spoke. Then, a year later, they adopted a rescue kitten completely unrelated. The kitten, named Cleo, was timid at first. But on her 3rd day in the house, Cleo walked up to the daughter's bedroom and curled up on the exact same pillow Luna had claimed every night. Not just that she began doing the same 3 things, tapping the girl's forehead with her paw before bed, dragging one slipper under the table, and sitting at the window at sunset, watching something invisible. The father said, it wasn't similar behavior. It was identical down to the time, the gestures, the rhythm. Could it be a learned pattern? Possibly. Could it be coincidence? Maybe. But what if? It was memory, not from the brain, but from the soul. In many traditions of reincarnation, there's a concept called residual soul memory, the idea that even when a soul inhabits a new form, echoes of the past life bleed through, especially through repetitive action. We've heard it in humans, a child prodigy at piano who never touched one before, a boy in India who remembers the name and street of a life long gone. But could it happen with cats? And more importantly, could they be returning to you? This is where the concept of soul agreements comes in, a powerful idea spoken of in many spiritual circles, and even echoed in the readings of Edgar Cayce. A soul agreement is a promise made before birth between two souls to find each other again in this life, for a shared purpose of love, healing, or transformation. These contracts don't always involve people. Sometimes, the soul that agreed to walk beside you again chooses to come back in a quieter form. A form that wouldn't overpower you, wouldn't try to change you, just be there watching, waiting, holding a space for your soul to heal itself. So when a cat returns to the same place, touches the same object, looks at you in a way no other creature ever has, don't ask if it's instinct. Ask instead, is this the echo of a promise, finally kept? And if it's true that some souls return to us in a quieter form, then perhaps we must also learn to listen in quieter ways. Sometimes, what you need isn't words. It isn't advice. It's not someone to fix or explain or analyze you. Sometimes, what you need is a gaze, a presence, something that says, without saying, I see you, as you are, and I am here. Have you ever noticed how your cat doesn't try to change your mood? It doesn't cheer you up when you're sad. It doesn't pull you away from your solitude. Instead, it joins you in silence. It reflects you without judgment. This is the behavior of what spiritual mystics call a mirror soul, a being whose presence doesn't instruct, but simply reflects the truth of your state back to you. A man once shared his story with me. He'd been grieving the loss of his partner, sitting on the floor night after night, numb and unreachable. No one could get through to him except his cat, Juno. She never meowed, never approached. But every night she would sit exactly 6 feet away, her back straight, her eyes locked onto his, unblinking, present, never moving, never asking, just being. He said it felt like she was holding the grief with me without trying to take it away, like she understood that some things aren't meant to be fixed, only witnessed. That's not instinct. That's not training. That's intuition. Cats live in a state of awareness most humans have forgotten. They move with the rhythms of the room, sleep when the energy quiets, vanish when something unseen stirs. They are, in every sense, intuitive by nature. But what makes them extraordinary isn't just that they sense things. It's that they respect them. They do not intrude on your stillness, they join it. In doing so, they remind you of something ancient within yourself, the part of you that once knew how to sit in silence and hear something deeper than sound. The cat does not teach by language. It teaches by frequency, by presence, by showing you what it means to simply exist without explanation. Because maybe the most powerful kind of love isn't loud or dramatic or full of words. Maybe it's simply a presence that says, I'll sit with you until you find your way back to yourself. If cats teach us through presence, then who or what placed them in our lives at just the right moment? Is it fate, chance, or something older? One man, long before the world spoke of animal souls, long before pets were seen as anything more than comfort, gave voice to a deeper truth. His name was Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, a man who, in trance-like readings, described illnesses, past lives, even future world events, and quietly, humbly revealed the spiritual nature of animals. In reading for 36491, Cayce was asked directly, do animals have souls? His answer, not in the same sense as man, but in the service to man. They may build into the soul of man and become a companion in the journey between worlds. He spoke of how certain animals, especially those bonded to us in love, may volunteer to return in physical form, not as servants, but as soul guardians. These souls, according to Cayce, may be drawn back to us not by instinct, but through a spiritual contract forged in a previous lifetime. Not every cat you meet is one of these. But when one arrives during a moment of transformation, grief, healing, and you feel an inexplicable sense of déjà vu, you may not have chosen them. They may have chosen you. Have you ever wondered why, among all the animals in the world, it was this one that walked into your life? Why did it find you not in a store, but on a rainy street, in a shelter on the day you weren't even planning to visit, or curled outside your door as if it always knew your address? Perhaps it did. Perhaps your souls made a promise long ago to find each other, to remind each other, to witness the unfolding of this life together. Cayce taught that all life is part of a great spiritual evolution, that even the animal kingdom plays a role in that unfolding, not beneath us, but beside us. In some cases, animals are here to absorb what we cannot carry, to mirror what we cannot see, and to ground us when our spirits drift too far from ourselves. Because maybe the soul doesn't care what form love takes, only that it keeps its promise. And if the soul truly doesn't care what form love takes, then maybe it doesn't care whether that form remains, only that the bond does. What do we do with the silence? When the poor steps stop, when the bowl stays full, when the warm spot on the couch grows cold and stays that way. For those who've loved a cat, the loss isn't loud. It's not a storm. It's a quiet unraveling, the stillness after years of shared breath, shared presence, shared knowing. But how do you know if they're still near you, watching, guiding, keeping their silent post beside your soul? The truth is, you may already have seen the signs. A woman once shared her story. Her cat, Ashes, went missing during a storm. They searched for days, no trace, no body, no closure. She was devastated. Weeks passed. Then one night, she had a dream. She was standing in her kitchen, and Ashes walked in, tail high, eyes calm. He sat in front of her and simply looked up. She knelt down. He blinked slowly, pressed his head into her chest, and faded. The next morning, she woke with a single thought. He didn't get lost. He just needed me to know. He's okay. Dreams are not always dreams. Sometimes they are visits, not imagined, but invited. Cayce spoke of this too, that in the hours between waking and sleep, the veil is thin. That love, especially a soul-bound love, can pass through it to leave a message, a presence, or simply a final touch. Your cat may be gone in body, but souls, especially those tied by love and service, don't simply disappear. They linger in the unseen, in the rhythm of your breath, in the pause before sleep, in the moment you feel watched, but not afraid. They may return in dreams, in sense, in the flickering of shadows when no one's home. And often, they stay with us long after death, not haunting, but holding. Because maybe the ones we love the most never truly leave us. They simply learn to walk without sound and sit beside us in the spaces between. If love is eternal, then so are the souls that carry it. And maybe, just maybe, some of those souls have 4 paws, golden eyes, and a silence more sacred than words. You've now walked through memories, myths, and mysteries of cats that watched, that waited, that somehow knew. So let me ask you, in your quietest moments, do you ever feel like you're not alone? That something ancient is still watching? Not to judge, not to interfere, but to remind you that you are known. If there's one truth this journey whispers to us, it's this: they saw your soul even when you didn't know it had light left. Maybe that gaze so deep, so silent, wasn't curiosity. Maybe it was recognition. Maybe they were sent, not just to comfort you, but to walk beside your soul through a chapter you couldn't write alone. So if this video awakened a memory in you, if it brought back a face, an energy, a presence you thought you'd lost, don't push it away. Lean into it. Because some bonds aren't meant to fade. They're meant to be felt again. And maybe this is your invitation to reopen the thread between you and the soul that never truly left. But before we part ways, there's something you need to know. Edgar Cayce once warned, "Not all animals return in light. Some come back from unfinished karma, from pain, from roles once misunderstood. Yes, some cats come to guide you, but others come because your soul and theirs have unfinished business." In the next video, we'll explore the darker side of soul contracts, the cats who come not to heal, but to mirror your shadow, so that both of you can finally be free. Because not all eyes that watch you bring comfort, some bring truth.